You're listening to Packers Talk Network.
Welcome to Packers Weekly Podcast, part of PackersTalk.com network. I'm your host, Miles Tuddick, joined by your co-host, Tim Hamilton. We are just a couple of diehard Packers fans that love talking about the Pack. We're not getting distracted by national sports media nonsense that keeps getting more nonsensical as we go. We are sticking to the top topics around the Pack every week, breaking down games during the season. And, of course, now in the dead of the off season, we are sorting through anything and everything we possibly can. If y'all love this podcast, want to support us, please spike that like button for us. Most importantly, jump on over to the Packers Talk Network YouTube channel. Hit that subscribe button. It's really a big deal for us. Really big deal for us when you guys do that. And I know it's like a real quick, low energy action. So do that. Do it right now, right this very moment. And we will be eternally grateful. This evening, we're going to spend some time on the offense. And then Tim and I will have a bit of a debate. I don't know how, objective we can be about all of this, but I think we could take some points on each side of are they good or are they great right now? I think that's really kind of the topic that seems to be floating around the Packerverse. There's a lot of good players. Are there some great players? This is probably a good team. Can it be a great team? And in the NFC North, nothing's going to be easy. So you kind of have to be great in order to get going. But first, before we get into some of these fun things to talk about, we are, of course, sponsored once again by Wisconsin's own Ticket King. For over 30 years, Ticket King has been providing Packers tickets to Packers fans as well as Bucks fans, Brewers fans. And, of course, all you Wisconsinites up there getting your Summerfest tickets. It's coming up. Got to get them. You can find them on the web at theticketking.com. Visit their locations in Green Bay and Milwaukee. Remember, support those local Wisconsin businesses. And, of course, if you're not in Wisconsin, support your local businesses. Tim, good evening, sir. How we doing, man?
Good evening, Miles. Doing good. And we are like a month away from training camp. So it'll be here fast.
Yeah.
It's kind of the slow part of the off season, but we're going to get there really fast. It's only a month away.
This, it always, when we're in it, it always, feels like it's forever. And then we end up at like week 2 or 3 of the season. You're like, oh man, look at this. We've got real football. Oh, how about that? So yeah, we're here. We're going to get a few good episodes in before training camp starts. And then we've got, real football to analyze, but, got a few of our friends here with us. Chris, the casual in. Let's go, fellas. Good evening, Chris. Glad to have you with us, sir. Got Bill Passes with us. Bill says, good evening, gents. And good evening to you, Bill, as well. And we got our Showers, of course, jumping in. I don't know. We might have to have like a segment, like where in the world is our Showers? Oh, here we go. There he is. Live from rainy Amarillo tonight. Excellent. All right. Yeah, I heard there's some weather out there. Stay safe, man. And then we got Bob Swede. Can a team win with a $55 million QB? Bob, that's a great question. I'm going to hold on to that question because we can analyze that question a little bit here. And then Chris says he's calling it from Plano, man. All right, look at all my Texas homies hanging out. We got like a Texas Packers fan cohort forming here. I love it. So yeah, before we get into any kind of debates, though, we just wanted to talk offense, right, Tim? So I mean, there's a lot to look at on offense for this Packers team. It's not a boring offensive team, right? I mean, I guess good place to start is just to ask you, like, when you think about this offense and going into the 2025 season, what catches your attention first?
Well, I mean, I think the obvious is they took a first-round wide receiver for the first time in what seems like forever.
Fair.
20-some years. So
yep.
That's the big storyline. But I think it's just the overall wide receiver core. Like, can they improve on what we saw last season? Like, every single one of them we've seen flashes from. We've seen the potential. We've seen what they can be. but we also saw them all take a step back in 2024. So now you add 2 rookie wide receivers to that. You got some contract situations. You got an injury to Christian Watson, who looks pretty damn good in the video that was posted last week. So maybe he's back a little
I think
sooner
I'm
than we
taking
were.
the under on week 12. Just
Hey,
going to say that.
yeah, it sure looks like it's going to be sooner than week 12. I don't know how soon. I think the Packers will be very cautious and
Never know.
put the brakes on that. But I mean, it looks a lot sooner than week 12. I mean, my man was running pretty damn good on a torn ACL.
And not just in a straight line.
No, and that's the important thing. Like he
Right.
was running around and he was running
Right.
top speed, and he can run.
Yeah.
So that was impressive. But it's, who knows? It's one clip of one video of one workout, and
It's short season.
it's exactly. And the Packers medical staff ain't there, and yeah, they're gonna slow play it, as they should, to protect him. But anyway, I think to me the big storyline is their receivers, and like, what do they have there? What do they truly have there? Because it's make or break time for these guys. Like, you got Dobbs and Watson who are coming up in a contract year. You got Wicks and Reed who still have another year after into 2026, but nobody really stepped up last season. Like, we saw it from Reed early, and then he kind of faded. He had to drop problems. Wicks struggled all season. Romeo Dobbs had that weird 1-game suspension where he decided he didn't want to show up for practice because he wasn't getting the ball enough, and he has concussion issues. And obviously Watson has a long injury history. So they added those 2 rookie receivers to it, and it's going to increase the competition, which the Packers love at any position. But that's, to me, what stands out about the offense is like that increased competition at receiver, how it shakes out. And then we can talk offensive line too, and they increased the competition there as well, obviously with Aaron Banks and Anthony Belton. But I think the most interesting part of the offense is, what do they have at receiver? Like, it's time to find out. Like, we've seen the flashes, we know there's potential there, but it's put up or shut up time for these guys. Like, all the potential is great, but you got to earn it. You got to prove it. And I think Gute is kind of saying that in his actions as well. Like, he likes his guys, but they had a down 2024, and he went out and he took a 1st-round receiver and a 3rd-round receiver. So you got to prove it. Like, you have to win those competitions. You got to prove it on the field.
Yeah, no, that's what I was going to say is I don't think Gute has made that a secret, right? It's kind of the scene from The Dark Knight where the Joker cracks the pool stick and drops them between, each half between the guys, and it really feels that way. Like they're just from a numbers perspective. There's a lot of bodies in that room, and there's a lot of talent in that room. Certainly, there's a few sure things on the top of the list. But man, it gets blurry there on the bubble, So who's going to make it? I think Bo Melton is doing himself a favor by showing some versatility and maybe being able to jump over to defense and have value there. And that may be a position of opportunity depending on how that shakes out. But it's an interesting room, man. And I'll say this, not everybody's ready to compete for a job. Most of the guys that make it to the NFL at that point, they have had to compete for a job. And so they're used to that and they've had that pressure. Not everybody has, man. And it's a different thing when you have real competition for your job, when you've never experienced that before because you've always been just better. Right. And that's not to knock anybody down for that, but I've seen it. I've witnessed it. It's a very real thing where talent, when it gets hit with competition, all of a sudden changes a little bit and doesn't respond as well. These guys are humans, right? So not everybody's going to respond the way you hope that they would, or, obviously we're Packers fans. We want to see all these guys be, 1,000+ yard receivers and breaking records and whatever, but somebody's going to, get an outsized share and others are going to get left out, right? Like, more of these guys are going to get left out than not. That's really what this comes down to. Who's it going to be? I like the brew of ingredients, if you will, right? I like the element of competition in the receiver room. I love that that's what's happening because it should deliver excellence, right? competition breeds excellence. Some, you know, there's sayings like that. But I like the tools that are in the room, right? You've got size, you've got speed, you've got route running ability, you've got separation ability, you got hands in that room. There's a lot of abilities in that room, and I think that that's the most exciting thing is whatever emerges, right? Like, call it your best six, since the O-line kind of goes with this best five mantra. Call it your best six. They should be pretty dang good. They should be. I think it's safe to say they should be an improvement over last year's unit. My question becomes, who is it and how does it happen, right? I think the biggest issue with last year's unit is not necessarily total production, but it was those times when you needed that clutch catch and you didn't get it. You know, you kind of missed that Devontae Adams luxury there where, man, there was a time where you just get it in his vicinity and he's just grabbing that thing and you got your first down and you're going to keep rolling. And that is a luxury to have. My hope is that Matthew Golden is that sticky hands guy where, you know, third down, 3rd and 7, you need a guy who get it in his vicinity. He's going to take it and win that battle. If you have that, you don't necessarily need that much more production out of the unit. You need those clutch moments out of that unit. I think that's my real opinion about it.
Yeah, and I agree. I think they're better. I think the competition is better, and I expect some guys to bounce back this year, but do all of them bounce back? I don't know. And I think the competition is going to bring out a lot of them. And I think they're good receivers. Like, I don't think any of these guys are bums where they can't play. Like, Jaden Reed's a damn good receiver. He can make plays. We've seen it in the NFL. We saw it going back to college. Not that you need that. Look at what he's done, 2 years in the NFL. We just got to see it consistently from him, and he's got to cut out the drops. I think he'll do that. Like, I'm pretty confident Jaden Reed's going to bounce back. Wicks, we kind of saw the same pattern when he was in college. He had a really good year, and then his last year in college, he had a really down year where he had some drops. That's kind of what we've seen with the Packers. He looked really promising as a rookie and then took a step back in his second year. So, like, can he get to consistency, in his third year? I don't know. I want to believe in him, and I do believe in him. He's more of a question mark for me. But I really think, like, adding Golden, adding Williams, that gives the receiver core something they were lacking. And it gives you the ability to get into different personnel packages with them. But also, if, like, certain guys are struggling, then you have other guys that are going to take their snaps from them. And I don't know if you had that enough last year. Like, I think they were a deep receiving core, but this is a different kind. Like, this is more of a top end deep receiving core. Like, Bo Melton and Malik Heath are good receivers, but they're not like your number 1, your number 2 receivers. They're your number 4, your number 5, your number 6. Like, so.
Agreed.
And I think Golding could be a number 1 or certainly a number 2. And I think Williams, though I question that Williams a lot, but if it works out with him, I think he's got that ability to be like a top 3 or a top 2 receiver. So I think, like, it raises the bar for these guys. And it really, like, from a Packers perspective, like, if Wicks is going to struggle or Dobbs is going to struggle, like, you don't need to ride with them because you have other guys now. And you can kind of, like, I don't want to say move on because you're not going to move on during the season, I don't think, from those guys necessarily. But, like, you don't have to wait for those guys to, like, find their consistency or take a next step because now you have replacements already on hand where I don't think you quite had that last year.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that there's maybe a pressure there now that wasn't there last year. And that can lead to complacency, that lack of pressure. So yeah, I agree with that. And, I start to think about what is it you try to attain and what's the goal and what would be success. And, for me, I look back at that 2011 group, man, that group that's on the cover of Sports Illustrated, that was just crazy, and it's not that, we've got 5 receiver ones. It was just like, man, like any of those guys, when their number was called, they were ready to go, and they were ready to put it on display. And it was just, I want that, man. I want you to be 5 deep where it's like, no, that dude's got it. Like, when that guy's number is called, he's got it. I'm not worried about it. The defense is worried about 5 receivers, legitimately worried about them. And then we got some good other weapons we're going to get to too. But that's what I hope for. I don't know if this group can be that, but I think they have the potential to be that just by the abilities in the groups. A lot of talent, man.
Yeah.
If you got 4 of these guys living up to their potential, this is going to be a damn good group. So that's where I look at that going, maybe, and you got a pretty damn good tight end group too, like there's a lot of potential with the weapons in this room, but potential, like that's great. I'd love to see something real, like put it out there, make it real, make another Sports Illustrated cover because, you're just imposing your will on the NFL. Couple good questions over here. Hang on just a second. We got
Sure.
Bill says another question for the receiver room is the coaching probably going to be better? I agree. I want to see, they didn't get rid of Vrabel. They've got Vrabel in there. I don't know that they needed to get rid of him. I had some criticism for him back in 23 and kind of early on, but at the same time, there's a lot of factors involved there. I don't know that I put the mistakes on him last year. Receivers, the thing about drops is it's a very psychological thing. I don't know how much a coach can really fix that. Like we've seen these guys have elite catching ability, but that the word you keep hearing Gute use is consistency, right? So it's like, great, Dontavian Wicks, you're going to make a spectacular catch downfield, score touchdown. Like, like the last year in the preseason, they started off with a big bomb to him, and it was just like, oh, dang, this is what we thought was coming. All right, it's coming. And that's great, but then it stopped, right? Or then in one of the most important moments, there's a drop. It's stuff like that where that's a much more psychological thing, which I think coaching definitely is a factor of. But I don't know that there's just like where I'm a lot more willing to go off and point fingers at the defensive line coach for maybe doing some things that weren't working for players than I am to point at the receiver coach for their call it a step backwards last year as a group. I think just psychologically there was something different. Like maybe he didn't have as much of a fire lit under them. They're trying to have a little bit more of a comfortable relationship, which is fair because sometimes that works, right? I'm not trying to criticize that, but there's complacency that can be built into that too. So, question, with theirs, I think that it really is more of a psychological thing. And I don't know that a new coach changes that.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, I think if they have the same struggles this year, then yeah, you absolutely got to look at replacing whether it's Vrabel, Ryan Mahaffey's receivers coach, whoever. Like you got to look at it if it repeats itself. But to me, like if you just have them catch some of the balls that they dropped last year, forget like are they running the right routes consistently? Are they beating man coverage consistently? Because there were issues there. Just catch some of the balls you should catch, especially in the key situations, third downs, second half of games, like those big situations where balls were going off their hands. Help your quarterback out. Maybe it's not the perfect throw, but you got your hands on it. Make the play. Like you're an NFL receiver, you should make that play. Like if you could just clean up some of that, it's going to make such a huge difference. So is that coaching? Are they not teaching them the proper way to use their hands to catch the ball? I don't know. It's so hard to say, but some of it just seems so basic. It's like you've been a receiver for a long time. Like you should know how to just catch the football, right? Like that to me, just it's
like
a
basketball
mental
players
thing.
with free throws, right?
Right. It's a mental thing. It's a concentration thing. Like it just you got to make the catch. Like no excuses. Don't point the finger at the coaches. Catch the ball, and if they can clean some of that up, it makes a big difference. And I agree with you to your point. It's consistency with the receiver room. We haven't seen it, and now's the time. Like put up or shut up. We need to see that consistency.
Yeah, and so Randy Cohen has a question, or maybe more of a statement. Receiver hand positioning when catching the ball has been suspect for years. Watson especially struggles with this. Yeah, and that is something you can coach. And I can't say whether or not they've been doing a good job of coaching, hand positioning and all that kind of stuff. I really believe that the issues they had were psychological, especially because of how they happen, right? Those clutch moments, and you thinking a lot about maybe what if I don't catch this, and if there's too much of that going on, then it's not going to work out. You're not going to be consistent. It's going to look like last year did. I think, if it were coaching, I think you probably would have seen that, that kind of I don't know how I would describe it, but that kind of decision or observation or from the front office, right? I mean, they very clearly thought that the D-line coach was an issue. They were pretty swift about that. Won't even talk about the guy. He's Voldemort there now. And, so they're not acting that way with the receiver, the passing game receiver coach. They're very much committed to him. Those guys have been there for, what is this, year 3, 4 for them? They've been there for several years now. I think if they were the issue, that probably would have been maybe more apparent to the front office and something would have been done about it. I really believe it was a psychological thing, which, again, look what the front office did. Like, there's clear moves, right? Like, words are one thing, actions are a very different thing. They were very swift to remove the D-line coach and kind of let the D-line be what it is. They were also very swift to put a lot of bodies in that receiver room and leave those coaches where they're at. So I think that can tell you a little bit of it. Yeah, a little bit of like how each room stands. And when you compare the two, that maybe makes a better case for the D-line to say, like, hey, they really believe they've got the right players. Maybe they weren't getting the right instruction. Whereas you've probably got a little bit of the inverse going on in the receiver room. Do you have the right guys? Well, you're about to find out, but we believe they're getting the right instructions. So take that,
Yeah. And I still believe in them. I still think they have enough of the right guys to be a really good offense, but we have to see it. We have to see it. And cleaning up the drops, it starts there for me. Like, they have to be better against man coverage. But that's another issue. But just catch the ball. Like, the first thing about being a receiver, catch the ball. That's what we got to say. Then we can talk about everything else after that. But if they do that, then I think you're going to see a much improved receiver corps.
No, I totally agree. And I don't think I think you can make small improvements and get big differences out of that. Like you're saying, those clutch moments, they make those catches. This is a different conversation. And the stats don't change all that much in that scenario. We got a comment from one of our best friends here, Matthew Tan, jumping in with us. Good evening, Matthew. Says Tim should be working on Fox. I like his rundown. Go, Tim, go.
Well, thank you. I mean, if you want to go ahead, I'm a lot cheaper than Tom Brady, so. But I'm very happy here. So, but thank you, man.
The Pack Weekly Pod on Monday night
on Fox, right? And maybe I'll do Sundays with Fox.
There we go.
I'll be on that as well. But.
Oh man. So, well, all right. So we've kind of done a good little dissection of the receivers, though. Let's shift over to the tight ends, because this, I think, is a very key group also for just the pass catching part of the offense, right? So we're obviously very aware of Tucker Kraft. Luke Musgrave, we're talking about this word potential. This guy is loaded with it, but here we are again, also talking about, can a guy stay healthy? That's just such a awful theme. But I think they've got some good depth at the tight end position too. I mean, some of these other guys have shown they can get in there and not be, a big step backwards from Kraft or from Musgrave. So, what are your initial thoughts about the tight end group, man?
I think they got to feature Musgrave more than Kraft more than they have in the past. And I thought it was interesting that some of the comments coming out of the offseason, out of minicamp from Kraft was like, they used him a lot, or he caught a lot of his passes on checkdowns, and then he just broke tackles or made guys miss or whatever. Like, he wants to get featured more, and the offense wants to feature him more, a little bit more downfield, maybe more of the seam routes that they'd like to do with Musgrave, but do them with Kraft. Like, we want to see more diversity in what they're doing with Kraft as far as like where he's catching a ball, that it's not always like a check down or something shallow where he's got to, run through guys, though we can do that. So that's encouraging to me, because I think they can feature him more frequently and in more diverse ways than they've done in the past. But like, I'm all in. Like, we've seen the receiver room. We talked about them. We've seen them struggle with drop passes and all that. Let's maybe take more of the focus on Kraft And then like if those receivers are catching the ball like they're supposed to, cool. Like that's going to enhance the offense. But I think Kraft needs to be more of a primary receiver for them than he's been. And then Musgrave, like, episode 1 for us was Musgrave Mania. And it just, unfortunately, with the injuries, it's never gotten to that point, But you see the flashes, and if the guy could just stay healthy, I still really believe in him. I think there's something there. I love 12 personnel, and if they can get into that a lot this year, I just think with the versatility you see of Kraft and Musgrave, it would be awesome for the offense. But Musgrave's got to show that he can just stay healthy, and when he's healthy, make plays. He's got all the tools, he's got all the potential, but it's just the health has held him back in his 2 years. So hoping for the best, but like that's a guy who can be an awesome athlete in position, open up the seam routes for them, be a big body that can go up and get some balls for him as well. I still love him, but he's got to, number one, be healthy, and then be able to show the consistency in his production. So a lot of questions with Musgrave, but Kraft, like I'm all in on featuring him as, if not the number one guy in the passing game, like, the number 1 or number 2 guy. Like if our receivers can't do it, we should be going to Kraft a lot more. Like let's get him involved further down the field, more as a primary receiver than we've seen.
Oh, all right. We're back. No, this is the group that, to me, this kind of provides some insurance to the offense, right? Like there's a lot of potential in the receiving group, and the one thing that we pointed to that they need to improve is those clutch moments. But man, if Tucker Kraft can't be that guy, right? Like I'd much prefer him being your 3rd and 7 dude, just for who he is, the attitude, the physicality, it just sets a certain tone. Whenever, you can get that guy the ball, and if he, you can rely on him to convert, consistently in those situations, man, that is demoralizing for a defense to go up against. But that's where I'm very excited about it too, because if you got the receivers hitting and you've got him, that's where you start creeping closer to that 2011 group, man. You had Jermichael Finley, and you really start looking dominant, and the versatility. You're talking about 12 personnel, you can go all over the place. And some credit to Nagler and Andy Herman. They were talking a little bit about Musgrave. I was listening to that, and Andy, he went out there and saw all the mini camps and everything, and OTA practices. So he got a good perspective. He obviously can't see everybody, but us not being able to be there, it's good to be able to listen to him and get a good take on what's going on in the field. He seems to feel like Musgrave is starting to kind of settle into his own. And the way he described it was a lot the way that I felt like Christian Watson was, and he was kind of describing how, Musgrave might have even been trying to almost run faster than what he's capable of, and not really sure how to use those, legs to their fullest yet. And now he seems like he's kind of settling down into it and almost becoming faster for it, I think is how Andy described it, which when I was watching Christian Watson early on, and we're talking about his hamstring injuries and what's going on there, I'm sitting here thinking, like, I think he's just trying too hard, right? Like when you're, younger and you're just trying to, enter the NFL and make the best impression, you're going to maybe exert yourself a little bit more than you should. And that can definitely lead to hamstring injuries and other sorts of injuries. It can also lead to you just not being able to stay on your feet after you catch the ball. So I'm looking forward to seeing Musgrave come to his own here. I think if he can stay healthy this season and you get a healthy Musgrave and Kraft, now you're talking about an offense that, and the episode is good or great. You got a healthy Musgrave and Kraft, and you're getting even potential out of 3 of those receivers. This is a great offense. And we haven't even gotten to start to talk about the running back yet. So I just, that's a big if at that tight end position though, right? It's very tough for any tight ends to stay healthy these days. If you play fantasy football, that there's like 2 tight ends or 3 tight ends a year that are actually difference makers in the fantasy football game. And that's because the rest of them are hit or miss, right? sure, 1 week Kelsey might have 2 touchdowns and 100 yards, but then, for 5 weeks in a row, he's not going to have points to help you with your fantasy team. That kind of speaks to what the position, the tight end position in the NFL is these days. It's tough, man. You get beat up and you're asked to do a lot. Like you're asked to run with the receivers and hit with the running backs and linebackers and block with the linemen. That takes a toll on the body. So I think we're talking about a real big if actually having Musgrave and Kraft on the field at the same time. Like that to me is just a massive if. And if you can get it, I think you're talking about lightning striking. So, but we got our Showers over here says, oh no, sorry, that was Bill. Excuse me. I disagree with you, Miles. Tight end depth is very mediocre. I mean, the names are, I hear you. Like, they're not exciting names after Kraft and Musgrave, but, I feel like Sims and what's the other one? Fitzpatrick, is he there? Yeah, I feel like they've held their own. Now I'm looking at their PFF ratings; they're not very good. So, fair enough.
I mean, how many teams have 3 tight ends that are good?
Not many.
Like, no. How many teams have 2 that are any good? Not many.
Yeah,
very few. So I get what you're saying. Like, it's if you're getting down to Sims and Fitzpatrick, that's not bad for a tight end 3. Right.
No, and we've seen those guys make reliable plays. They're 3 and 4 for a reason, right? You're not expected to rely on them every day and every down or every clutch situation. But I don't know what we've seen from them. My impression has been they're serviceable. They don't seem like liabilities. Maybe that's a fair way to put it.
Right. Yeah, I agree with that. And I think if Musgrave stays healthy, they're not going to play a whole lot, and your top 2 tight ends look really good if Musgrave can stay healthy.
Now we got our first negative Nancy over here, though. Chris the Casual In says Musgrave is a failed experiment. We'll be better off the sooner we fold the hand. All right, so he's hopping on that like Jair type train. The injury bug got him. Get rid of him. I'm not there yet. I think that if he can't stay on the field this season, that's probably the conversation.
Yeah.
But if he can stay on the field this season, man, I want to see it. I want to see the show. I want to see that show. I want to see those 2 tight ends on the field at the same time with those fancy receivers doing all sorts of stuff running around them with that beastie running back coming right up behind, man. Come on now. We got a good offense coming together, but is it great? I don't know. We'll get there. But yeah, I think that's an interesting position, especially look, if you do have injuries, okay, now are you all right with those guys? Or, is tight end maybe a position that if Tucker Kraft goes down, are you starting to look like how do you make some additions there? Or, are you comfortable with riding with those guys?
If Kraft goes down, there's nobody that on the roster that compares to him just because of everything he can do. Musgrave, what he potentially could be as an athlete, like he's not the complete tight end with the blocking that Kraft can give you. So if something were to happen to Kraft, I think they got to look for somebody else, or you just got to manage it where you're going to go a lot of 11 personnel and just have 1 tight end on the field. Like you're going to pretty much get rid of 12 personnel, not all together, but it's going to be very limited. He's a real tough one to replace on offense, Kraft, but I think the potential of what they can be with Kraft and Musgrave, again, if Musgrave can stay healthy, it's one of the best tight end duos in the NFL.
Totally. Yeah, I do agree. It's got to be. So, yeah, that's a real make or break position, I think, for this Packers offense that hasn't been talked about as much. And obviously there's a lot to talk about with Jordan Love, the receivers, and even the offensive line. But that group, man, if they stay healthy and they do well, this offense could really, really thrive as a result of it. So then, let's shift our attention over to the big boys, right? The O-line, they're important. You got to protect everybody. I guess, first and most important question, and maybe this is a little bit of a softball, but are they a better unit now than they were this time last year?
Yes. Yeah, I don't have any hesitation in saying that. I look at it from perspective of they moved on from Josh Myers and they replaced him basically with Aaron Banks. Now we're shifting Jenkins to center, obviously, once he shows up and participates. Banks is a better player than Myers. Elton Jenkins at center is a better center than what Myers was at center. That to me is like the simplest way to put it is
Pretty fair.
they got better personnel. Now we can talk about Jordan Morgan coming back and hopefully staying healthy, Belton in the second round, like, and what he maybe could provide a tackle or guard, whatever it may be. But like, just to answer your question, yeah, they're better just because they upgraded from Myers. And I think Jenkins is a significant upgrade at center. Now I know they're not as good at left guard. Banks isn't as good as what Jenkins was at left guard. I get that, but Banks is still better overall player than what Myers was. So yeah, I think they're better. I think they're deeper on the offensive line. Yeah. The depth is better.
Yeah, I agree. I think the depth it's easily got to be better, and maybe some of the draft picks, Belton doesn't turn out to be very good, and that tone changes. But knowing what you know right now, the depth has to be better than what it was this time last season. You got Tom there as your cornerstone right tackle. At the very least, you've got Rasheed Walker at left tackle, which I think we've agreed is he's an above average left tackle, but maybe somebody else wins that combination or competition just for being a better left tackle, which would be a great scenario. But yeah, I really believe that at every position group, you've got a chance to be better than you were last year. And even with Zach Tom, I mean, he's still a pretty young man. You can expect him to still get better. I don't think that's out of line at all. So yeah, I gotta agree this unit's better, and they weren't a terrible unit last year. I mean, they had some holes, they struggled with a few things, but they were far from even I would say even in the bottom half of O lines in the league last year, right? I mean, do we have any metrics on O line rankings? I don't know where you look at that.
I mean, I think from what I've seen, and I'm going off memory now, but they were a top 10 offensive line by.
That's what I was going to say, like top 10.
And that kind of stuff. The one area that I think they kind of weren't as good in that they can improve, and I think they have with the personnel and the shift with Jenkins is just their run blocking. There were a lot of times where Josh Jacobs was having to make yards where he was getting hit behind the line of scrimmage or at the line of scrimmage, and he was having to make tough yards on his own. He wasn't getting a ton of at times, yeah, he was getting holes, but it wasn't consistently there. So he was making a lot of those yards on his own. I think they, again, with the change from Myers, bringing in Banks, they've upgraded the run blocking unit. That's the one position, the one area where you can kind of see it last year is like there was too much penetration behind the line of scrimmage, at the line of scrimmage for Jacobs to get through in order to make some of those yards. And I think with the changes, it can be better this year. I think it more goes into what they want to be as a run blocking unit. But I think as pass protecting, they were pretty damn good. I know there were times, against Detroit, against Philadelphia, where they did allow some pressure. And I think the Philadelphia was more so because they lost Jenkins and they were really having to scramble there. And playing from behind in those games hurts you as well, right? Because they're able to tee off and they're coming after you with the pass rush. So I think the pass protection was pretty good last year. But it was the run blocking that was inconsistent or maybe a little below average at times that they can improve on.
Yeah, and I mean, if your O-line's going to improve on run blocking and Josh Jacobs is only going to probably take a step forward if he can, he's already pretty damn good. Yeah. That is a great sign for this offense. We're talking about good and great, man. I think this offense is starting to creep towards great if those types of things can happen. And, again, you're not even coming down to, all right, well, if this one person can be good, then all right, we're good. You're talking about a lot of area, right? And that's, I don't think in a bad way, right? I think that there's a lot of potential across all of these positions that if even some of them live up to their potential, this offense is going to be very good, if not great, and so, yeah, I agree, man. I'm very optimistic about the O-line. I think one thing that we can't see until you get into training camp that is important is the guys have to kind of gel together. There is an element of trust on the O-line and assignments and things like that. And So we have to see how that goes, and kind of, is there a certain group that starts to look comfortable together? But what we talked about before, they're trying to get to a best 5 with the offensive line. I think there's a lot of different ways you can get there, and that is a good thing, right? That's something you want, so that when you do get popped in the mouth against Philly, you've got a next man up that can get the job done. So okay, yeah, O-line. I mean, we're both pretty easily optimistic about that. We didn't even really talk about Belton, or any of those guys. Some of the younger guys that could be potentially stepping up. Jacob Monk is one I've been a fan of, and I'd like to see him crack that best 5, maybe at right guard or center. Depending on how things shake out with Jenkins. But yeah, there's a lot of potential there, and a lot of different guys. So hopefully the depth looks 180 degrees different than what it did last season, because as soon as the depth was called on last season, they flopped.
Yeah, and I mean, I thought it was interesting too. Going back to minicamp, and this is only because Banks had some kind of injury where he wasn't practicing, but Donovan Jennings was getting first team reps at left guard. He was on the practice squad all last year, an undrafted guy, but he was getting a shot in there with the first team offensive line. So he's one to watch. Yeah, he's one to watch from a depth perspective. I mean, he's not going to be a starter for this team, but does he make the roster? He very well could. So he's one to watch in training camp and the preseason games to see, if he could be one of those depth guys that makes the 53.
Absolutely. And then, of course, we got to drag it out. I see you, Bob. I see you. We got to drag it out a little bit, though, right? Because everybody wants to talk about the quarterback. So let's jump into the quarterback position, right? So this is a very important year, I think, for our $55 million quarterback that Bob was pointing out here. Can a team win with a $55 million QB? And so, Tim, I'm going to give you the first shot at this question. What do you think?
Yes. They can. I mean, I look, I know like the stats are like, quarterbacks with the cap hits and the money, it's not that high, but like it's some of it's just circumstance, and some of these guys got paid after they won, right? Like, or they got paid and the market exploded, and certain guys beat those. Like, I get it, and you have to have a full roster, and if you have a really expensive quarterback, that's going to hurt you at other positions because maybe you can't add as good of players at those positions because you're allocating so much to the quarterback. I get it, but I don't think it means you can never win with that. Like, Patrick Mahomes has won his Super Bowls. I know he's not 55 million, but he signed a pretty big contract that doesn't look so good because it was like a 10-year deal and all that. But really he shouldn't have signed it. Like, and he would be well past 55 million if he had a good agent that would have negotiated, a shorter term deal, because he would have already got it paid again. But besides that, like, I'd rather have a $55 million quarterback because that means you believe in him enough to pay him that much money. And I know they don't all work out, guys that are 50 million plus. I get that. But like,
right.
Give me a guy that I can trust and be like, yeah, we're going to pay him. He's our franchise guy. We'll give him the big contract, no doubt. Than a team that's changing quarterbacks every couple of years. Like, I don't know. Jalen Hurts gets paid a lot of money. I don't know how many millions he gets, like he just won a Super Bowl. And
look at his contract. That'd be an interesting
one.
One.
Josh, like, you're going to tell me Josh Allen can't win a Super Bowl? Yes, I know he hasn't. I know Lamar hasn't. I know Burrow haven't. But like, they're pretty damn good quarterbacks. Like, I know, I get it. It's about Super Bowls and all that. But like, what are they supposed to do? Like, you don't want those guys on your team? Like, I guess you can make the argument, well, if you don't pay Burrow that amount, maybe you can get a better defense. Okay, but like, if you're not paying Burrow that amount, who's going to be your quarterback then? Right?
Yeah, and I think that's like the real conundrum of the QB situation, right? It's like, well, it's real expensive. A good one is, but if you don't have a good one, it's hard to be good.
Right. Who are you winning with every year? And like, maybe the Bengals should have drafted better defensive players. Like, they had a terrible defense, and you can't tell me, well, if they didn't play Joe Burrow all that money, they'd be like, they need multiple guys. They don't need like one dude that they could have paid some of Joe Burrow's money from. Like, draft better, develop better. Like,
yeah.
Buffalo's been knocking on the door, and they're eventually going to win with Josh Allen. I think so. But like,
It's a fair
they're
prediction.
they're going up against the Chiefs. That's tough, and they've been really damn close to beating them. I know you got to win it, but like some of that's been like Sean McDermott's messed up games. You know, the tight end
There's a
didn't
lot of
catch it.
it comes
There's a
down
lot
to a
of
lot of like
factors. It's not
small little
just like
moments.
right. And like I get the question. I do, but I'd rather have a really good quarterback that I want to pay that amount than be like trying to figure out if my quarterback's good enough to pay that. You know, like
Yeah.
give me the quarterback.
Well, and we're not really using relative terms either. You know, history is not going to have a whole lot of data of quarterbacks being paid $55 million a year. So I think really what it's more about is the percentage of the salary cap that maybe one player, not even a quarterback, because some of these guys are having to pay, you know, like Micah Parsons is about to get paid. That is if Jerry can. I still don't think he can. We'll see how it goes. What percentage is one player or maybe two players, whatever that sort of like those outliers are, what are they taking up of the salary cap? And I think that really tells the picture more than anything. And the hell of it is there's really not like a blueprint, right? The only thing that maybe you could call a blueprint for how to do it right is what Tom Brady did. So I'd go back and I'd look back and see like what percentage of their salary cap, those Patriots teams, was his salary, you know, and take a look at that and study that. I'd almost, even without being able to look at it and say for sure, I would be willing to bet that the Mahomes contract could probably be considered a 2.0 of that situation.
Yeah, but I think Brady was unique in that, like, he took that. I don't know how many guys are going to do that. None of them really. I mean, Peyton Manning was that same era. Peyton Manning got paid. He got his money, and he still won 2 Super Bowls.
I get
Mahomes, like, I get it. He probably was thinking, I'll take a little less and we can win. But he also signed a ridiculous contract that was like pumped up as this big deal. But then, like, when you looked at the average and like what it was going to work out over time, it was like, you know what? He's not getting that much. And I don't know if he did that to help the team as much as like he just signed a bad deal. Yeah, I think he probably was leaving some money on the table, but he's really far behind where he should be. And I don't think that's necessarily like what his intention was, right? I think the other thing to look at is like not only how much you allocate in your quarterback, but like how much you allocate on one side of the ball. And again, to bring up the Bengals, like they're paying 2 receivers a lot of money. You're paying a quarterback a lot of money. Now you don't have as much to spend on your offensive line, and you don't have as much to spend on your defense. Like they're not paying Trey Hendrickson because they're paying T. Higgins, Jamar Chase, Burrow. Even their tight end Gesicki got a lot of money too. Like, okay, so those guys got to score 35, 40 points a game because you don't want to pay Hendrickson. You're just relying on younger players or your veterans who didn't get it done before because you don't have a whole lot of money to spend on defense. So like, I think you got to spread it out more, but you still got to pay that quarterback, right? Like maybe
but that's where and these are we're starting to talk about like behind the door conversations, right? But if you're a GM, right, and you're trying to strategize what is your strategy to get to and win a Super Bowl, each year there's 31 examples of what not to do, right? You get one example of what worked each year. So you've only got 59 examples of what worked over the last, the Super Bowl era. If you're going to analyze that data, the only pattern there is, and obviously you're mixing eras. There's free agency kind of there that started in 92, I think it was. So there's obviously not even really comparisons across eras, but you could do the best you can to analyze the data. It would show that the quarterback's got to take a lower percentage of that salary cap, not the lowest or like an insultingly low percentage, but it can't be this outsized percentage of the salary cap because then you hamstring the team to some extent. And I think, to tie this back to the Packers right now, and we're talking about our $55 million quarterback, I don't think you can say with a straight face that he's hamstringing the team right now. Now, in a year, 2 years, maybe in 3 years, maybe that's different. I don't know. But right now, I think they're in a fair position. They have cap space. They don't have holes in the roster, gaping holes. I mean, obviously there's question marks, but they're not hamstrung like the Bengals or even the Cowboys, man. I'm down here in Cowboys country. This team, I don't know that they can pay Micah Parsons. And when they do, who else are they going to be able to pay? And Dak Prescott, is he worth being paid the most of the quarterbacks in the NFL?
They're gonna have 3 guys at the top of the market with CeeDee Lamb, Dak, and then Parsons.
Yeah.
Then
and what do they get for
that's
that?
the problem, right?
So that's where I'd look at this, and I'm not the hell of it is you really quarterback. It's this tug of war because a quarterback doesn't have to. They know their value, right? Like, I know my value. Market will pay me my value. You got it. You're right.
Yeah.
But if your priority is winning Super Bowls, data says this is the way to do it, right? Take a lower percentage, and you do have to kind of come across these exceptional situations, right? Brady didn't need money. His wife was making more than him. Well, Mahomes doesn't need money either, man. And I think, Bob asked there, where's Mahomes live? He's down in Texas. But the point that I'm getting to is endorsements. These guys are making bazillions of dollars from State Farm and whoever else. They're probably not even worried about their NFL salary after some of these guys, after their endorsements. And the NIL era, I think, is only going to inflate that, right? Because you're going to have players that got some deal with a company starting when they started at, Ohio State or wherever their university was. By the time they get to the NFL, they've got a relationship with this company. And it's, again, it's like, let's ramp up the endorsements. That'll happen. Because again, those companies will have data on that relationship with that athlete too. And it'll say like, hey, we spend money on this athlete, we get money back, right? It doesn't always work that way, but when it works, right? With Michael Jordan being the prime example there, Nike. So yeah, I think that if you're in these conversations in that room, the GM saying, look, man, you want to win some Super Bowls? This is how we do it. I know you could make more, but we got a team to build. And not everybody's going to work that way. Not everybody's going to agree to that. They don't have to. They shouldn't have to. I'm not going to tell a player to go off and you should make less than you could. I'm telling you, data says that's probably the winning formula. And even then, it's just like, it's probably. It's not like a guarantee. So that's an even harder sell. Hey, take less money and you might win. That's tough, man. And that kind of goes back to how hard it is to win a Super Bowl in the NFL. But we're talking about quarterback. I'd rather all day, every day, be in the position that the Packers are in with Jordan Love right now than probably any other situation besides the Mahomes situation, right? Is there another quarterback that you're more envious of, and especially when dollars are considered in the NFL?
I mean, he's not. I don't worry so much about the dollar part of it. Like, he's a top 10 quarterback to me, but like, there's guys that are better than him, and I don't really care that much about what they're getting paid necessarily. Like, I get your point, but I'd rather just give me the better quarterbacks, and we'll figure out the salary cap and what they're getting paid from there. But yeah, I think he's a top 10 quarterback right now, and I think the growth is ahead of him. And it goes back to all the the positions we talked about tonight, starting with the pass catchers. Like, if they can be consistent, it makes Jordan Love a better quarterback. If the offensive line can be better than it was last season, it makes him a better quarterback. And then his overall performance, I thought he was good last season, but I think his accuracy can get a lot better than it was. And there's a lot there still to be unlocked with Jordan Love. And I think he's capable of it, but he's got to prove it. And again, the same, we brought up this word a million times, consistency. And we got to see it with him, starting with his mechanics, his footwork. But it's there. And is this the year where he gets himself into the MVP conversation? Or is this the year where we're kind of like, yeah, he's probably a top 10 quarterback, but he's not one of the upper echelon guys. And I think that's going to determine a lot for the Packers this season.
Yeah, I agree that determines a lot for sure. All right, so that's a good segue then, man. Is this team good or great?
I can't call them great. I mean, not at this point. I got to see them on the field. I think they're a good team. I think they've built a good roster with improved depth than this point last year, or even, looking at it from the end of last season. Like, I like their depth. They can go out there and play a game tomorrow, and there's not one position where I'm like, well, who's starting here? Like, we can. I'm very skeptical of their pass rush and that they've fixed it, but like, they have guys there, right? Like, they have guys. They just have to play better. They got to improve. There's not like one huge hole where you're like, man, they don't have a starter. Who's going to be the starter here? Like, they have the guys. They just have to play better at certain positions. So I feel really good about the depth and just the overall structure of their roster at this point. But I go back to like the three best teams they played last year: Vikings, Lions, and Eagles. They couldn't beat those teams, right? And I know they were close in most of those games, but they didn't win.
Yeah.
And it was, though they were close,
they were consistently short. If they were consistent with anything, they were consistently short.
They were consistently short. They didn't show like they weren't one play away from winning those games, really, if you looked at it. So that's where it holds me back. And yes, I think their roster's better, and not even getting into like where the other teams stand right now. We can talk about them another time, but like, until they show on the field, until these players improve internally, and we talked offense tonight, like starting with the pass catchers, catch the ball. You need to improve. You need consistency there. Like, till I see that, I can't say they're great. Now, looking at this, 6 months from now, could they be that point? Potentially. A lot of things have to break right, but I don't think it's a lot of things where it's like, you see some of these teams and you're like, well, everything has to go right. The three teams in their division have to have their quarterbacks go down. Like, no, it's not unrealistic stuff. But if, could they win in a division? Yeah. Could they finish in third place again? Yeah. So at this point, I think they're a good team with a lot of potential to be much better than that. But I can't go beyond good right now.
What's the one reason you can't go beyond good? Is there just one? Like, can you pinpoint it to one? Maybe the second one is 98% just as important, but like, what's just pin it on one?
Jeez, I'm both probably. So this maybe kind of goes back to what Al talked about last week when he was with us. It's just having those difference makers, right? Like, they have some, but you need more to
all
be
pros,
right? You need more to go deep, and maybe they have them on this roster, but they haven't shown it yet, right? And that's a consistency thing. That's maybe a growth thing, but like, they just need more upper level players.
Yeah, and see, all right. So I'm gonna steel man the great side. All right, I think you have several of those players inbound, right? So we just talked about the offense. I'll shift over to the defense for a second because there's a few that are easy to start with there, right? I think Xavier McKinney picks up where he left off. I think you have an all-pro season safety there, okay? So there's one. All right. The next one, also pretty easy. I think Edge Cooper does what people expect him to do. I think he has an all-pro linebacker season. I can make any stat predictions. I think he does become that dude. Number 3, I think Devontae Wyatt comes in, stays healthy, and picks up where he left off last year, right? Now that's 3 different levels of the defense you got there, and I think those are all 3 very fair, easily assumable impact players. Is that fair? I'm not making any big stretches yet, right?
No, I mean, Wyatt's a little one.
A little stretch, not a big stretch.
But I can see it too. I'm with you.
All right. We're not pulling anything, not even getting too far in our stretches where it hurts a little, just a little stretch.
Right.
But I think and the stretch in that is that he stays healthy. It's not even a stretch that he picks up where he left off, because I think a lot of people agree where Devontae Wyatt left off was like, hey man, this guy might have something here. Combine that, I'll make another little stretch. I think it's fair as a little stretch is that Kenny Clark returns to who he was, right? Can he stay healthy? I hope so. He's done so pretty well across his career. I'll give him the benefit of the doubt that there was an injury bothering him last year. If those two dudes on the defensive line return to pick up where they left off, I think now you're already in that territory where it's like, dang, like you could have 4 very, very, very good all-pro, but like I'm going to say all-pro type players in your defense right there. And we haven't really spread out too much. After that, you feel pretty good about this next tier. So, like, I'll start back at the top of the defense again. The next safety in line, either Evan Williams or Javon Bullard, or maybe another one of those guys starts finding reps. I think you feel pretty damn good about that position, right? So the top of or I should say the backfield, the back of your defense right now, I think is as good as it's been since you won the Super Bowl, right? Like we haven't gotten a lot of great safety play over the last decade. You got some good, there's a couple little bit there with Savage and Amos. They had a couple good years, but I think right now what you're looking at with McKinney, and I'm going to say Williams, just give him that starting job, is a great safety tandem, if not one of the best in the league. And that is a big deal because that can protect the rest of the defense. Obviously, the cornerbacks are probably the biggest question mark on the defense. I think that's fair. Maybe the defensive line health is a little bit of a equivalent. But when you have a safety tandem that you can conceivably believe is one of the best in the league, that can hide a lot of those issues you might have with your cornerbacks. And I don't think your cornerbacks are like Ladarius Gunter 2016 level liabilities yet. You know what I mean?
No.
Is that fair to say?
Absolutely. I like their cornerbacks better than some people, some Packers fans. And I really like Hobbs. I think they got something there. I got a good feeling about Hobbs.
I like Hobbs. Yeah. I mean, and I'm not going to go off and make the stretch and say, all right, so Hobbs is going to be an all-pro too. No, we don't have to go there. It's all right. We don't have to go there. But I do think that your cornerback unit is upgraded. Consider the cornerback unit without Jair Alexander, which is what you had for most of the year last year, is upgraded. That's a good thing because you still had a pretty dang good defense. And it, I don't know, when we watched the games, it didn't feel like the corners were the liability. Did it feel that way to you?
No, they weren't. I mean, I was scared of them. Other than, Stokes was a liability.
Yeah, Stokes was liability. Yeah,
once they went to Valentine Moore, they really weren't. Like, it scared me every week, but they were fine. They did a decent job for them. And that's why they've upgraded at cornerback, going just from Stokes to Hobbs.
So you got the upgrade there. You're already a top 10 defense. You finished last year. You got all that coming together. And then you've got the likes of like your Quay Walkers, your Isaiah McDuffie, some, more solid guys that you don't necessarily need to be all pros, but you just need them to be there consistently contributing and being the glue to that defense. And then the pass rush, right? So what I will predict is that at least one of them will be a beast. Is that fair? Can we predict that one of them will have a heck of a season? I don't care who it is, whether it's Gary or if LVN comes alive, or maybe Enagbari is like, hey, check it out, I'm actually pretty good. I don't care who it is. I think one of them comes out. And what I mean by big season, double-digit sacks, more than 10 sacks. Is that outrageous? That's not outrageous, right?
I think Gary's the only one that can do that. So
okay, but I think he could, right? And he's pretty
pretty
healthy. I haven't heard much from him. He's not even doing much on social media from what I've seen, as far as his usual off-season kind of training stuff that he's usually putting out there. So there's a ton of potential there, and none of it's a big jump. So I'm very optimistic about this defense. And if you have a top 10 defense, which you already did, and I think we can agree that this unit got better, assuming no injuries, right? That's always the caveat.
Right.
I think it's safe to say this defense is going to be pushing for a top 5, maybe even one of the best units in the league. And you don't need that dominant cornerback one that Jair Alexander was when he was at his peak and healthy. You don't need the 20 sack guy, your TJ Watt. You need somebody who's north of 10 sacks with other guys doing their jobs. You need the top on the defense to be secured with those safeties on the back end. And you need linebackers that can command and like keep things in front of them on these running games. And I think you have that at every level. I am very, 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 very optimistic about the defense. And I do believe it will be a great defense because I think Halfley has the potential as far as being a coordinator and a play caller, which is what I really kind of hone in on. And we've talked about that last year too with him. I am very optimistic about what this defense can be. And if this defense is great, this team is great. You don't need the offense to be living up to its potential. If this defense is great, I think this team will be great. And I think the offense has a pretty damn good shot at being great too. There are a lot more question marks. You need a lot of, you need some of these receivers to come in. You need the tight ends to stay healthy. You need the offensive line to gel together. You need Josh Jacobs to not take a step backwards. You need, Jordan Love to be more consistent. There's a lot of things you need to happen on the offense. So when I say that I think this Packers team could be great, it really does start more with the defense. I don't think it's as geared around the offense. But the idea that if the offense does live up to its potential, now I think you're talking about a lethal team that goes toe to toe with anybody in the league. But that's big ifs there, right? That's this time of the off season that we're in. But I didn't make any big stretches there, did I?
No, and I agree with you about McKinney. I think Cooper he's the one that could be really special. Like he could unlock a lot of things. That he could be one of those blue chip, elite players at linebacker from what we've seen. The pass rush is where I have my concern, but I get what you're saying about Wyatt and Kenny Clark and maybe Rashawn Gary. And I love Halfley. Like he was so impressive what he did last year, and I feel like he was shorthanded for most of it between losing Jair. They were a little, and Cooper being in and out with some injuries and. Losing Evan Williams at times too in the secondary hurt him, and then just inconsistent pass rush. Like I feel like he made them better than what they should have been. So I can see a top 10 defense. I can't get the 5. Maybe it's just because I'm very skeptical still of the pass rush. Maybe part of it too is just I've been let down by so many Packer defenses of the past. Like I can't get there to believe yet. But I do believe in Halfley, and I like him a lot. So, like, I'm with you. I see what you see from, like, if things break right, this is what they can be on defense. So, no, it's what you're saying we're not stretching it too far.
Well, and I know that the pass rush is a big thing that everybody wants to see take shape. I think if those other things come together, which seems very realistic that they could, that should only help the pass rush deliver and become what it should be. And I think I would compare the pass rush more to how we were criticizing the receivers, right? More situationally that they were exploited than anything else. There were the worst times is when the quarterback was back there baking a cake, right? Isn't that what we were saying?
Yeah.
And there were other times where they got 9 sacks in the Seattle game or something. It's like, you had it. You had the ability. You showed it here and there. There's all sorts of context and, well, this guy's injured now. Now that guy's injured. Well, this guy just got back from injury. Now this guy's injured. There's all this like shifting and everything. I think now at least they'll be a little bit more equipped to adapt to some of that shifting with Halfley being his second year in the system. But if you can at least avoid some of that and have some health and consistency with the group, man, I am jacked up about what these guys can do. And that's where it's like, I think the pass rush can sort of fit into that, and all those other things happen. The pass rush can come into its own, whoever it is. Hopefully it's LVN, because I know that there's pressure on that, and a lot of Packers fans are ready to riot over, the 13th overall pick, or was it 12th, whatever. I just like, he's a third-year guy. Give him a chance. Let's see what he does. I'm not ready to riot about it, but I do believe that this pass rush has potential that maybe is being overlooked. I think there's maybe some negativity. Oh, we don't have a pass rush. Like, yeah, we could though. We might. We really might. But yeah. So I don't know. I'm going great, man. I think this team's gonna be great, and I think this is, one of the topics that, and I know it's getting a little bit late, but one of the topics that's been floating around a little bit the last week is Ed Policy taking over and saying that he's not going to extend LaFleur and Gute. I don't know. I don't look too deep into that. I don't. I think that's it's more has to do with the timing than anything else. But
Yeah.
I mean, this is a very important year for that tandem for LaFleur and Gute. Not that they're on the hot seat, but it's like if you've been building a team, this is kind of the crescendo, right? I mean, you've been building up to this. Now you can't really blame youth anymore. You can't really blame a new system anymore. There's really no glaring player holes. Like you're set, man. You've got it. Like if something's going to come together again, always barring injuries, this really should be the year, and I think that more than anything is you have to let this year play out before you can figure out what the future holds.
Yeah, I'm fine with it. I don't think there was much to it. Like for me, they have 2 more years on their contract, so it's not like it was something that needed to be done. And policy even said he doesn't really believe in having lame duck coaches. So to me, that means like, yeah, maybe at some point during the season or after 2025 season, he's going to extend those guys. Like, I don't think in any way this means like they're on the hot seat or it's a prove it year. I think it's an important year, but I don't think it's like make or break, right? Like, I think, and Ed's been there for a long time. Like, I'm sure he's going to do some things different than Murphy, but I don't think he's a guy that's going to come in and be like, I want my own guys and I'm going to clear house unless these guys win the Super Bowl sort of thing. Like, he's been around them all the time. Now, obviously, his role is going to be a lot different. He'll be more involved, be around them directly more than what he was previously, but he's been in the building. He knows them. I mean, he was part of the process to hire Fleur.
Yeah.
So, like, it's nothing new. Like, he knows how the football operation functions. He knows those guys. It's fine. Like, they don't need to be extended right now. And the fact that they're not, that's, to me, it's not really a story. Now, if they were going into the last year of their contracts, then yeah, it's a story. They need to be extended. If you're not going to extend them, then that kind of tells you where it's headed. But no, I don't really make much of it. I think it's fine. And it's, again, I don't think it's make or break for either one of them, but it is an important year. Like, this team needs to take the next step, but it doesn't have to be a Super Bowl next step, but
No,
they need to like make progress. Like, this can't be a one and done season again, or else next season the pressure really starts to ramp up.
yeah, and I think context always matters, and maybe you go win 13 games in the regular season, you win a playoff game, you lose in the second round. Obviously, everybody's goal is to win a Super Bowl, but I think in that case, you're looking at that going, man, I think we did our jobs, and if you evaluate how the GM made his decisions, I don't think there's a whole lot that you're going to criticize or you should have done this, should have done that. That was a terrible decision. Why'd you do that? I don't think you're going to find a lot of that. I don't think you're going to find a lot of that for the coach either. And I think that's where the evaluation of things comes from is not necessarily what happened, but how it happened. And that's why he can't necessarily answer the question yet. But it's not a matter of, yeah, these guys are on the hot seat. No, it's just more like, listen, we don't know how we'll extend them. We don't know any of that. We haven't talked about that. We're not there yet. And I just got this job. Like, let me sit in the seat for a minute, and
Right.
I think it would be almost foolish for him, even in an extension, to rush into getting that done before the season starts. Because it's like, dang, dude, like, why? You don't need to. Chill out.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't look anything into it, but I think success is defined in different ways, and nobody's going to overtly admit that, hey, we didn't make the Super Bowl or didn't win the Super Bowl, but it was a successful season, because the fans would riot. But as far as how decisions get made, I think there's some degree of that where it's like, yeah, we did what we could and things didn't go our way, and we'll try again next year. I know that's kind of a debate too. Maybe that's one for next week, but I've always been on the side of like, I'd rather the team be right there with a fighting chance every year than do this like, hey, let's be terrible for 3 years and then maybe we'll win a Super Bowl and then we'll be terrible for 3 years again. And like kind of that Rams model where they basically bought their Super Bowl. Not like they didn't cheat or anything, but it's like they did pay for that. And they had to be terrible there for a year or two afterwards. So I like that. I prefer that they, stay relevant and stay in contention every single year. That's I don't know. We might need to have that debate on another time,
Yeah.
but anyway, all right. Well, yeah, we got pretty late on this one. Maybe next week talk about the defense. Is that what we should do?
Yeah, we got to break down the defense. Broke down the offense tonight. We got to go defense next week.
All right. So next week, we're going to fly through the defense. We're going to start talking about these pass rushers. We're going to get down into it a little bit. Maybe talk a little bit more Viness and Gary and get into that. But I always appreciate you guys hanging out with us. You guys have been great in the comments tonight. Always bringing some good info, good questions, good comments. If you enjoyed this episode, please spike that like button for us. Jump on over to the Packers Talk Network YouTube channel. Hit that subscribe button for us. Tell your friends about the show. And, season's right around the corner. We'll be doing those weekly game breakdowns and just riding that ride, man. It's coming. So get ready. But most importantly, come back, hang out with us again next weekend, Monday night, 9:30 p.m. Central. And, of course, as always, go Pack. Go.